one of the nights after I'd been woken dozens of times, dozens, multiple times, I started to wake up. I was still on my side though, or maybe I was on my back. I think I was always on my back when I was woken and he was there. I don't know if I was manipulated, if something was pulling my attention or moving my body, which has happened in situations. I've never even thought about that. Ew, ew, ew. But maybe somebody was turning me over to be ready for this encounter. Or as I woke, my solar plexus, which is a place that energy comes and goes, was attracted to it. I don't know if I did it myself or what. But I started waking up. And as I would start waking up, every time I would be like, again, not again. It was not physically abusive. And talking with like a therapist about this, he said, "Were you sexually abused as a child? And this is your way to do this?" And I said, "No, but it was absolute emotional abuse. I was not prepared to feel that. And but no, there was no physical abuse that happened. So I woke up and I was like, oh, no, no. And I wasn't quite awake. My eyes weren't open. I was just starting to come to in consciousness. And I sensed someone else in the room. And it felt almost like my mother was there. It felt protective and loving. Like I was not alone. Kate was sleeping. Maybe my mom was in the room doing something. And I was about ready to open my eyes because I sensed this person there next to me. And she leaned down and whispered in my ear, "Don't open your eyes." And so I didn't. And I immediately thought, this is not my mother. This is something in this other place where this other thing is. And I thought, ha, my guardian angel. Now, every night before we'd go to bed, we would all kneel down, growing up Catholic in the mid-century Chicago. We would pray, "Angel of God, my guardian dear," every night, and call in our guardian angel to protect us at night. And I thought, it's my guardian angel is here. So I'm like, all in. Whatever you want, I am not opening my eyes. And then she says, "Lift up, lift out, and come with me." And I have no idea how I knew what she meant, but I did. And so laying there in the bed, I felt my energetic body, my spirit body, lift up out of my body and like go with her. And all of a sudden, I found myself outside our house, on the street, on the sidewalk. The street light was on. I was out of the house. I couldn't feel whether it was cold or warm. I couldn't feel things under my feet. But everything was illuminated in this glorious amber light that you could see things so clearly. And by that age, I think I was already a little nearsighted without realizing it. And I could see every leaf on the trees. And it was as if they had a glow around them. Everything was glowing. Everything with this amber light. And there I was, and I was just looking around. And I knew she was with me, but I never looked at her. I felt like she had taken my hand and connected and was there. And she said, "You can fly." And I was like, I can fly? And I just knew what to do. And so I took a couple steps and I leapt up and I stayed afloat. And I, like when you're blowing a down feather to keep it afloat, you go, and I was doing that, but it was with my energy. And I was like going up and up, and I went up in the trees. And pretty soon I was flitting around and just bouncing around in front of my house and going up by the windows. I didn't look in the windows. I just stayed out there in this wonderful, I was so euphoric. It was the most delightful, wonderful space to be in. And I kind of floated down like a feather, like a leaf to the ground. And I was looking around and I noticed the sky starting to get light. And I'm looking up at our big, dark house. And it was gray outside and all the windows were dark. And it was there looming. And I knew that that man was in there and that all those other things were in there. But I was outside And now it's starting to get light. And I all of a sudden thought, oh, how do I get back in? And I don't sense my angel with me anymore. I'm all alone. I'm standing there looking and like, oh my gosh, if Mom wakes up and sees me outside, I'm in big trouble. What do I do? And then all of a sudden she's there and she says, just fall back in. And again, I knew exactly what to do. And I was like, and I just went and connected back in my body and woke with a start as if falling from a really high place. And I was like, oh, and it was light. The birds were outside the window. And I was like, oh my gosh, that was the best night I've ever had. My body was rested. My mind was at peace. My heart was rested. Kate woke up and she said, what are you doing? And the closet door wasn't open. She said, what are you doing? And I said, I went outside and I was flying last night. And she's like, oh, you big liar. And I'm like, no, really. So when I told my mother, she said, I love flying dreams. And I'm like, it wasn't a dream. It wasn't a dream. I know the difference between that and a dream. It looks different. Everything was illuminated and in color. In dreams, it's kind of faded, you know, nothing is as brilliant as in that space. And I was like, oh my gosh. And I told Kate that my guardian angel took me outside. And she's like, that's not, you know. And I told my mom it was my guardian angel. And she says, oh, your guardian angel is always looking out for you, you know. So after that, if I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would just leave. I would go outside and I would stay in the yard in the front. And then pretty soon I would go to the park. And then I could go other places. I could just think of wherever I wanted to be. And if I would wake up, I would just lift up, lift out, and go wherever I wanted to be. And I was able to do that. And it's still to this day, I'm able to do that. And that's an out-of-body experience. But my guardian angel taught me how to do that. And I told that story about how my guardian angel, but people would say, how did you learn to do that? Well, my guardian angel taught me. And so that was just my understanding of it. And then I got sick when I was 13 with a misdiagnosed illness that put me in wheelchairs. I'm to this day disabled, in and out of wheelchairs. And I would use my out-of-body travel to go do things that I was not physically able to do. There were times when all my friends were going to a friend's basement and I couldn't. I was in a wheelchair. And so I was like, go ahead, I'll just join you another way. And I did. I had been in that basement so I could visualize it and go there. And I could see what they were doing. I could hear the music they were playing. I heard their conversations and I reported it back to them. And some were like really freaked out, like, yeah, it's weird and scary. And others really want to find out more. And then as a later teenager, as an older teenager, at this time, okay, so when I got sick, when I was 15, I was told that I would have a life expectancy of about 30 years and that I would continue to get more and more disabled throughout my life and that I probably would not live to the age of 40. So when all of my peers were spending time figuring out, you know, being distressed about having a blemish on their face for a Friday night date, I was spending my time trying to figure out the essence of reality. You know, what is life about? What happens afterwards? What is this space in between that I can navigate? What is it all? And I started, you know, experimenting myself, but also researching, and I found out that there's a name for what I did, and it's called astral traveling or out-of-body experiences. And I could do it at will. When I was hospitalized, I would just leave. And during painful procedures, medical procedures, I got so good at it. I suppose, you know, it could be just disassociating, but it wasn't just disassociating. I was literally leaving my body and being able to see everything that was happening, but I couldn't feel it. And I would just like lift off just a little bit, just to rest, and then I could come back. And it was something that I could do fairly quickly. It was meditative. It didn't just happen automatically like disassociation does it. If you're in pain and all of a sudden you're not there, that's disassociative. But when it's there and I can meditate and move my energy up, that's different. That is a willful out-of-body experience. And so I did this all through my adolescence and young adulthood while I was dealing with this crisis. And then when I was almost 40, I found out it was a misdiagnosis. And I was able to be treated to arrest the damage that was happening. I still had the damage that was there, so I'm still somewhat disabled, but I am in my late 60s, and I am mobile, and I am here, and I still have all these spiritual gifts that I spent my energy on as an adolescent and then had. So at my 40th year was an amazing year for me. It was, I had outlived my expiration date and celebrated that and had all this. It was a spiritual awakening. It was a physical awakening. It was just this wonderful, aware, conscious year. And one night I had a dream, and this was a dream. This was not a travel, because I know the difference. I dreamed a day in my early childhood, and I saw everything. I saw the stains on my t-shirt. I heard it wasn't like a birthday or a special day. It was just a day stored somewhere in my memory that in my dream I just tapped it. And I saw my mom and dad as young people, and I woke up with like, I knew it was meaningful. I knew it was an important dream, but I didn't know why. So of course I woke up my husband and I said, I just dreamed a day of my childhood. And he said, there's something for you to learn there. And I dreamed up until when I got into bed. And he said, well, pay attention to it, journal your dreams, and what is there? There's something there for you. So then I thought, oh my gosh, and I'm trying to go back to sleep, and I'm so euphoric about this dream. My husband how does he do this? He could just go right back to sleep like that. And I'm like, I have to do 8 or 10 things to get back to sleep. And I thought, I know what I'll do. I need to rest my body because I have to get up and go teach in the morning. I will just do an out-of-body night and let my body rest. And if I can't put my mind to sleep, my consciousness will go someplace else. And I thought, I wonder if the spirits are still in the house of my childhood. And so I lifted my body out and I went to that place in Chicago. And I found myself in front of it. And this was at a time when I was still traveling in what felt like it felt like the outline of my physical body. Now when I do out of body, I don't compact my energy into that physical form. It just goes, which is fabulous. But there I was in front of my house, and it looked like nothing had changed. Nothing had changed. And I was like, whoa, this is like 30 years later, well, at least 25 years later, it looks exactly the same. And then I'm noticing around me, and I notice in the driveway is a pink and white Ford station wagon from 1958. And I noticed up and down the street, and there's old cars from up and down the street. And all of a sudden I have this thought, this is not today. I've gone back to when I still lived here. And I thought, I'm going to go inside. So I did. And it's not like you have to walk up the stairs and go in. It was like, all of a sudden I was in the living room. And I'm looking around, and there were bunches of kids, so it was cluttered with toys. I noticed in the arm of the couch, there was a cigarette burn that had happened there from Uncle Jack smoking this. And I noticed all this stuff, and I just kind of moved through the space, observing it. And then I decided I was going to look at the people. Now, I did not stop to think that, maybe I shouldn't look at the people. I was not paying attention to the Back to the Future movies or anything where you don't want to run into yourself. I was just so curious. And when I was in there, I did not feel the ghosts. So I'm not sure if I was in the same space as them or if they were just not had not come in yet. And I went and I saw my parents sleeping in their bed, and my dad was spooning my mom, and they were so young. They were younger than I was, and I felt so much love for them. And then I thought, I'm going to go and look at Kate and me. And I just was up. All of a sudden, I'm next to the bed, and I see us there, and we're sound asleep. And I was just like, how is this happening? And it was illuminated. It was that liminal space. It was that astral plane where we were. And then I started feeling the darkness come in, like the spirits were awakening. And there I was. And I was not afraid of them, not even a little bit. I was ready to smite anything that would interfere with myself or my sisters or brothers or my parents. I was like, I just felt my energy just grow, and I felt the man in the closet, and he started moving forward, and I knew he was going to open that door. And just then, my little self, my little person, Tiyi, young Tiyi, starts to go and turn over to wake up. And I was like, oh, no, you don't. And I leaned down and I whispered in my ear, don't open your eyes. I have goosebumps all over my body. And I said to her, lift up and come with me. And I pulled her energy into my grown-up energy. And we went outside. And I stayed with her. And after the morning, it was not morning where I was. Well, I think it was. But it was before my alarm clock. My eyes are filled with tears. And I came back into my body, my 40-year-old body, and I was like, Holy Mother of God, what was that? And my poor husband, I woke him up for the second time that night, and I told him this, and he's like, you are your guardian angel. And I have no idea how that happened. And I was not going there to do that. I had no intention of it. And I didn't realize that I did not connect it to that memory until I was already saying it. And then it connected to the memory. And I do not know how that happens, except that perhaps time is not linear. And perhaps when it's maybe my real angelic angel helped me get there to get myself on this path that kept me safe and kept me moving toward this spiritual awareness for the rest of my life. It was the pivotal event in my life that set me on this path. And I've remained on it and have grown in it and learned so much and experienced so many different things, that this awareness that we are at the same time the child that we were, the adult we are now, and whoever we will be in the future, we are all the same. And we can connect to that in crazy ways. So I have tried to out-of-body travel, to spirit travel, I call it, to the past since then, and have not been able to. I have tried everything I could think of, but I have not been able to. I think something opened that gate for me and let me go through, and now that gate is closed. There's no need for me to do that again. And it would just be being a tourist if I did it now. And I accept that. But holy cow.
I was just so overwhelmed with emotion, thinking of you and your siblings, just having to go through all of this and make sense of it. I mean, it's not something that I think children should go through, but it also sounds like you didn't have much of a choice, and your parents didn't either.
Well, what the man in the closet did to me as a child should not happen. They should leave children alone. I'm not sure if it was intentional or if I just was in a place where I was tuning into his energy. Children are very aware of spirit. They have not been told that that doesn't exist. But it really is, what I've found is it's everywhere. And when children experience that stuff, my own children, my own grandchildren, when they have experienced spirit, I question, say, well, talk about that. So, oh, that's amazing. So what was happening before? What did you do with this? And what do you think about that? Is it something you don't want to happen? Here's how you can keep it from happening to you. And give them the tools so that they're not accosted by spirit, but are aware that it's real. Because the world is so much richer than we that just live life in the material world experience. There's so much to learn. There's so much more. And there's nothing to be afraid of. There are things that don't have good intentions that can be harmful, but you have more strength than they do to keep them at bay. It's all part of the natural world. And where I live, the indigenous people here are the Anishinaabe. And they have lived in this region for thousands and thousands of years. And in their creation story, the creator first creates the world and all the beings, all the relatives, and all things are relatives, from rocks to trees to animals to everything was created. And then Nanabiju was the first human, and he was placed in this space, in this place rich with food and everything that anyone could need. And Nanabiju says, well, what is my job here? You've already created everything. What am I supposed to do? And the creator says, your job is to experience the creation. And that's, I believe, all of our jobs. We don't have dominion over it. Our job is to experience it. And part of creation, from my experience, is not just the growing things, the things that set physically, not just the carbon-based things in our physical environment, but this amazingly rich, I suppose the word would be multiverse, where we live. And if our job is to experience creation, that's part of creation to experience. And even though if I'm in the woods and I run into a bear, I'm in danger, and there's that bear. If I'm in a place where there is something that does not care so much about my well-being there, I don't just kill it or send it away. I move out of its space. I keep things in a place where it's manageable. And if I'm not able to do something, if I run into an animal that I'm not sure what to do, I just move quickly out of the way. But if you need to move something, like the squirrel on my porch, instead of like just being terrified and running away, I just move slowly and say, okay, you need to go off. And I just move slowly, and there it goes. And that works with spirit too. So our job is to experience creation. That is our purpose, not our job, our purpose. And so we need to be open to the unseen, the other world, and realize that we too are part of that.
I love that, like seeing our role into the whole of creation. And that's a new perspective for me. Earlier when you mentioned we shouldn't be afraid, you mentioned, there are tools so that something like what happened with you and the man in the closet does not happen. Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering if anybody is in a similar situation or can recognize parts of your story. First of all, are there ways for us to tell if we're just being paranoid? Because we have this fear thing in our minds of thinking like, oh no, it's just me being paranoid and there's something here. Can we tell if there's really something here or not if we don't see those really clear shadows as you did? And if so, then what are the ways to, I don't want to say keep them away, but can we do anything? Can we neutralize them? Do they need something from us? Do they want something from us? Those are lots of questions that are just unclear to me. So I'm hoping you can shed some light on this for us.
So that's very insightful and great questions. So first of all, just because something needs something from you or wants something from you does not mean you have to give it to them. If you are walking down the street and a physical human being asks you for all your money, you do not have to give it to them. You don't have to give spirit what it wants or, quote unquote, thinks it needs from you. You don't have to do that. So there is that. And most people are not in a position to actually help the spirit do get what it needs. And that's where I've helped people in those situations where there is a spirit like a newly dead loved one of theirs that needs something and is trying to get their attention to let them know what they need or what they need to know, usually is what it is. And so I, as an intermediary, can do that. You could do that yourself, but it's scary. And if you don't know, I would be really careful about just opening up to, oh, you have something you need me to help you with? I will help you, if you are not in a position of coming from a position of spiritual strength. Okay? So I have had situations where I've helped people in this. So there was someone who I was contacted through somebody else who had moved into a new apartment, and she was waking up in the middle of the night and some dark form would like just rise up from at the foot of her bed and loom over her bed. This dark entity that terrified the bejesus out of her. She was terrified. Her dog was being affected. She was just scared to death. And she had gone someplace to get some sage, to try to sage her place so she wasn't so scared. And I have to say that when people think that if you sage a place, it will get rid of spirit, no. It just calms things down temporarily. It won't, it's still going to be there. But anyway, so my daughter and I were going to go and help her with this thing that was just terrible. Other things were happening in her apartment. She was standing in the kitchen and something just knocked her coffee mug out of her hand and it flew across the room. Standing in there, and all of a sudden the faucets would go on, lights were, so something was there trying to get her attention. And then it was like rising at the foot of her bed, and she was scared to death. And I was not going to be able to be there for a few weeks. And so I gave her this advice, and I will give this to anyone who is in a situation where they're sensing something, even if you're not sure if it's real or not. If you are getting a fear response or an uh-oh response, that something is there, you can bust up that energy. And the best way to do that without any other tools except yourself there is to laugh. I know that sounds crazy. And when you're terrified, how can you laugh? You start by faking it. Now, if you laugh like that, you will feel your diaphragm going up, up, pushing, and it pushes your aura out, pushes your energy out. And you start laughing, and you laugh and laugh and laugh, and it busts up that energy. It works every single time. You don't need tools, you don't need salt, you don't need, a cross or a St. Michael, anything. All you need is your own energy, and you laugh. And she said, how am I supposed to laugh? And I said, fake it and then keep going. And she said that the first few ha-ha-has, it just went and was gone. And I said, now you need to just laugh in all your rooms. In all your rooms, just laugh until we can get there and deal with what this thing is trying to tell us. And also say to it, I know you're here. I'm not going to help you. Back up. You could do that. Somebody comes up to your front door and wants to sell you something. I know you're here. I'm not buying off my porch. You can do that. We have so much more power over our own selves than spirit has over us. I have this symbol on my hand. I think you could see that. This is a symbol. It's Celtic, but it's a symbol that demonstrates, that is knowing that our physical self, our spirit, and the universe are all connected. And something that is not physical is only two of those legs. And with two legs, the stool can tip easily. But with three, it will stand. So this, to me, whenever I do spirit work, I make sure, and this is not a permanent tattoo, this is a temporary indigo tattoo, because it's not like wearing an amulet. By drawing it, is you create that connection of your physical self, your spirit self, and the universe. And you have more power over anything that is just spirit. You have more, but you can't, don't be cocky. Don't like move into those spaces and say, I'm, get out, that you're going to get knocked over really hard if you do that stuff. And I see this, I see people playing these games of going into haunted spaces where spirit is reliving trauma and stirring it up, and it's so harmful. It's creating more harm in this universe that we share, in this creation. So our purpose is not just to experience creation, but to experience creation in a harmonious way. And when we go in and try to upset spirit or try to exercise this or do that or destroy this, we're not being harmonious. We're putting more negative energy out there than, and things that are attracted to negative energy come into that. So people that are doing this kind of thing, this ghost hunting, oh my God, what a horrible expression. That's like, when I hear that, ghost hunting, I just get this visceral response that in the U.S., when the colonizers moved through indigenous lands, they were hunting the indigenous people. It's the same thing. We're moving into space that is not ours, and we are hunting for entertainment. Come on. That's not experiencing creation in a harmonious way. Stop ghost hunting. You can, if you're curious and want to go and experience a place, that's different. That is, you can go in a place that you know has spirit and haunting, but go with compassion, not with fear or getting an adrenaline rush. Go to experience creation harmoniously. And that's one of the ways that I help people that are experiencing haunted spaces and are being like haunted and haunted in a way that is unharmonious, that's disturbing their existence, making them afraid, making them uncomfortable. I move into there and help try to bring things back into harmony with both the spirit and the living people. It's so curious. What a world.
Yeah. And does it ever take from your energy, or could it take from your energy? Because it sounds like you're putting yourself in situations, right, where there are these spirits with unfinished business perhaps, or maybe not the best intent. Do you need to protect yourself? Can it at times affect your own energy or well-being?
Yes, it can, and it will. And this was my experience for a long time. So I would prepare to go into these places to help spirit. I call myself a spirit medium or a gatekeeper. So tending the gate between people living and non-living. And it would drain me. And then I would have to like reset afterwards. And then I realized that I was doing things wrong. I was making the energy come from me, and now I let it come through me. So instead of putting my energy out, I let it come through, and all I am is standing in between. So it's not using my own energy. It's not using my own quote unquote power. I am calling on and like a conduit for my angels and ancestors and my spirit team, my guides that come through. And then before I am done, when I come back in, the universal energy comes through me and I visualize putting a cap on it. And I end up leaving these encounters now feeling more energetic, feeling more well than even before because of letting this thing come through me. Now this is something that I discovered myself over time. I've been doing this work and doing and experiencing this world, as I said, since infancy. And in my almost 70 years, I've learned how to do all these things. There are a lot of people who dabble in this sort of thing, who like can sense spirit and then want to help and go try to help. And I suppose I was there as a younger person, but that can leave you, as you said, drained, and you're susceptible to illness, susceptible to dark things that can come into your space. And there are never living entities in this creation that are harmonious, and there are those that are unharmonious. There are things that wreak havoc in the physical world, and they don't give a bleep that they are. It isn't that they're trying. Evil, when people talk about evil entities, these are not entities that are trying to cause harm. They just don't care. So for example, if a mosquito lands on my arm and I slap it, I am evil to the mosquito because the mosquito is in my space and I'm going to slap it out of the way. So people end up in spaces that people are not supposed to be, and all of a sudden there's this energy that does not care about them and will slap them, will smite them, will cause great harm, physical and spiritual harm. And unfortunately, human beings, especially Western civilized human beings, indigenous cultures knew this, knew there were places that these sentient beings dwelled, and would stay away from those places, or would walk through and honor them and acknowledge them and not build there. In Ireland, there are fairy mounds that they build roads around. They won't mess with it. Here in Western culture, in European, especially, colonizing cultures, which is Western European cultures, we feel like we own everything. In our holy books, we were given dominion over all things. And so it's ours. We get to do whatever we want with it. Well, sorry, boys and girls. It's not all ours. And when we build things in places where these powerful spirits are, they will let you know. And you will not be happy there. And they will wreck your relationships. They will throw darkness into your heart. They will cause depression. They will cause paranoia and anxiety. And they will keep doing it because you're in the wrong place. And, when I just helped a family with a house where there was one of these things. And it's all like in my city. My city where I lived was built on this place that none of the indigenous people ever built a village here. And this city was built in the extraction culture of cutting down all the forests. We're a lumbering community. And this was wetland. We're between two lakes, and there is a very powerful earth spirit whose property this was, whose land this was, and it reaches out well into the national forest. So there's places where it is still in the wilds. But here in the city, we have a plethora of haunted houses. We have people dealing with terrifying things in their basements or down in the bottom levels of their stores and things, just crazy stuff going on. And that's this thing. It's like, dude, you're in my living room. I'm taking my shoes off. I don't care if my feet stink. You know? And so there was a family living in a house that was built in the 1880s, at the time that this place was first settled. And the family that was there were both trauma survivors and had, from military trauma survivors, and had issues with drug addiction and all kinds of things. And they were in this house and terrible things were happening. And I went there with a couple of other people, and there was this thing coming up through the basement. They had shut off the back door and opened up the basement door, moved their bedroom close to the basement door to be closer to this thing that was feeding off of their mental health issues and their trauma. And I was like, I can't get rid of this. I cannot protect you against this. You should not be here. You should not be living here. While you have to be here, move upstairs as far as you can away from it. Because what we feed these things is what they send back. And if you're feeding trauma and anger and angst and fear and paranoia, that's what's going to come back at you. And that's the first time I ever told somebody, you need to move. Because this thing is not moving. This is not in their basement. This is in about a 12 square mile area. Maybe more than that, maybe a 20 square mile area. And you need to leave it alone. And I greet it, when I was there, I greeted it as, hello, my relative. I see you and I honor you here. Because this is something that was here way before people were here. And we are all related, so my relative. And so when I go out in the national forest and I go to my sacred place where I have an altar in the forest, I greet my relatives, the trees, the rocks, the earth, the forest itself, the river. And I bring gifts. I always bring an offering of fruit and bread and honey and butter, the things. And I have set a secret little altar there that I will leave those things. And although I'm certain that the physical creatures are enjoying them, the spirit creatures are acknowledging my offering. And so I'm welcome there. And we forget that. We forget that there are places that we are guests, we are visitors. And we need to behave in that manner. And that's the same in the spirit world. When I move into the spirit world, I realize that I'm a guest there. And I behave accordingly. I don't go in there and rearrange the furniture. I go in and find my place in that place. And then can help create more harmony.
Exactly. And one of the things that, I talk to a lot of NDEers, and often enough in their experience, they will meet different kinds of energies. They will meet light beings, they will meet angels, they will meet source. And for 90% of the time, those encounters are very positive and filled with love, filled with peace. So they always refer to it as a positive thing. And however, in the comments, there are many people saying, well, you've been misled. This is a dark entity that wants to trick you. So is there such a thing as an entity that needs something from you, pretending to be of service or support to you, or even disguising themselves in what you would perceive as an angel or a being of light, so that you would trust them and therefore get you to do something that to maybe stray you off your path? And how can we distinguish, if we have such an encounter, how can we distinguish, is this a light being, and should we trust it or should we not?